So, part two of honoring my sensei, Master Jim Ennis. By the way, this article was in the Washington Post. Uh, it also was in the Seaville Weekly, and I plan on calling them to get to talk to someone to see if I can get the article itself, and I may do an update on me getting the article. But this is the title. You probably can't read it, so I'll read it and then I'll do the video. Death after dressing room discovery. Okay. So let me talk to you about Master Ennis. To me, he was not a bad guy. And yes, he was a white man. His wife was beautiful. So this two-way mirror thing kind of threw me. Because his wife had model looks and he was a doctor. So there was like no fucking way in hell. Of course, with today's going on with the Me Too movement, that whole Bill Cosby and the other guy thing that's going on, it was kind of a shock factor back then. It's still kind of a shock factor back today. So, Master Ennis, the man I knew was a good man. No, I didn't know him to be a pervert, and it's probably because I'm not a woman. Alright? Now, I was kind of mad that he didn't fight it. Yeah, I was really kind of mad that he didn't fight it because of the loophole laws. I have been a security guard before, and when I first met Master Ennis, the inner stairway was downtown. I went to him for a year there, and then he moved it to where McGrady's is in the Shenandoah Pride building. They got all these batteries and sub shops there now, and they're working on that building as we speak. So when we went there, I stayed with him until I graduated and from high school. And so when he moved to Cherry Avenue, where the U.S. Tax Building is now, I guess that's where the incident happened, because I hadn't been a student of his for a while, and then I was going back to become a student of his. And we talked like at least 2 weeks before he died. It was either a week or 2 weeks before he died. I was still in my early 20s. And I talked to him. I went to that school and said, look, I want to come back to your school because no other school would take me. The Seven Tigers wouldn't take me. I hadn't met the guy from the Three Emperors yet, because had I met him, I probably would have went there instead. And the International Black Belt Center, they and I hadn't been introduced to them yet. And then when I was introduced with them, I was very disappointed at the Master Sensei not having any honor. So the Seven Tigers, they wouldn't take me because I wanted to fight for my black belt, and they were against that. And me and the sensei there, we had words, and I said, look, man, I know your job as a sensei to teach us, but how do we know if what you're teaching us will work if we don't fight for our belts? We gotta break boards and break bricks, and that don't do shit in martial arts. And he politely asked me to please remove myself from his studio when he was over there by where AutoZone is. Alright? So just to get that out the way. Mr. Ennis did not have that issue, and I was going to ask him if I could rejoin so I can get a black belt in Taekwondo or Karate, even though I couldn't get a yellow belt in Taekwondo or Karate. But I'm a good fighter. And the way I saw it was, maybe I can get him, because he knew me, to let me fight for my belt. And he probably was considering it before that clusterfuck happened. But, you know, I was telling him about my money situation. I was telling him I wanted to come back, and he was really willing to work with me because my money situation was really fucking tight. Plus, I was going back to school, and I was going to school at the time for acting. So, you know, I was hoping and praying that he would be like, all right, James, you're good for your shit, you know, you're a good kid. I'm gonna take you on in. We'll work with your prices as we go. And we had that conversation where I was good. I was ready to start. And I said, I need 2 weeks to prep so I can get the money. And after I get the money, I'll be ready to go. He said, well, you don't need to come in with the money right away. I said, no, I want to pay you before I come in, because that way I know it won't be over my head and you won't have to hunt me down because I've paid you. And his classes was basically $150 for 3 months at a time. Sometimes $200 for like 5 to 6 months. I think it was like, it was a monthly basis, what you could pay for what month. He had packages and shit. And they were good packages. So, I'm getting all this money together, and I'm getting ready to go in there. And, all of a sudden, I'm hearing that he's dead. And I'm like, that's not possible. I just fucking literally talked to him like 2 weeks ago. So when I come in with the money, there's a new guy there, and this guy was a fucking straight jerk. I don't remember his name, and I don't care. He's not relevant for this, but he was a fucking douchebag full of dick tips. He had the mustache and beard thing going on. There's another white guy. Again, I don't remember the guy's name, which is not here or there for the video, because again, and I state this kindly and lovingly, he was a fucking asshole. Okay? And an asshole like me can pick out another asshole. And my deal with Mr. Ennis didn't hold weight with this guy before he changed the school into a fucking karate ballet arena. And then karate went out, and all enough was there was ballet, and then the whole place closed down within 2 years of this man's death. So back to Mr. Ennis. I come in there, I met the asshole. All of the students were crying. Some of my friends that were students there, that were there when I was there and there when I left, and were still there getting their black belts and shit, because my money ran out and I had to quit. And it was go to work and pay for my car, or go to work and not have a car and still do Taekwondo. Well, logic, because I love Taekwondo, would have been go to work and do Taekwondo, but you gotta have a ride to get to work. So there was a clusterfuck there. So we're all in there, and we're doing the Japanese kneeling over the picture thing, and we all have our incense or whatever, and we're all praying, and we're all grieving, we're all crying. I believe his wife was there, and then she left, and then the asshole was in charge. He announced he would be taking over, and the school would still be running its natural course or whatever. And I think after we had our memorial for him, lots of students just started falling out and never returned. And then after all the students fell out, I went to talk to the asshole in charge, and he straight told me, your agreement with Mr. Ennis is null and void. I can give you a new deal with more money that you'll need, because at the time I had talked to Mr. Ennis, and all I needed was $200, and he was going to let me have it for like 6 months. When normally $150 only gets you 3 months. This guy wanted to charge me like $400 or $500 to go for 6 months, and I told him, like I told Mr. Ennis, look, dude, I just don't have that kind of money right now, because I'm in a job that I can't stand. I'm busting my ass at school, and I gotta work 2 more jobs that I can't stand, because I need to pay for a car. I need to pay for some of my books in school. I was going through a lot of shit, and I just didn't have the money. Where Mr. Ennis was willing to waive some shit, this dickhead was sitting on a bottle of needles and hot rocks. So he wasn't willing to try to do that. Again, that's neither here or there, so disavow that part. Now, let's go back to the first day I met Master Ennis. I was walking downtown, and I had been a martial artist before. And the first martial arts school I went to was on East Main Street, West Main Street, wherever Murray Steaks is. It was right there where Murray Steaks was. It's like a temporary something or another. And then there's like the brewing company, and there's all kinds of stuff there now. But it's the block not holding the Bluebird Cafe, but the one closer to where Mills is, for those who are local. So I went there, and I learned karate from the age of 7 to the age of 10. The story's been twisted a couple of times, because my fucking concussions that I've had since I was like 5 has got my memories a little bit twisted. So, some memories are a little bit distorted. Not all, but some, especially for that stuff. So, I don't remember what the first guy who ever taught me martial arts looked like. But I do know for 3 years, from the age of 7 to 10, I learned freestyle karate. There was no katas, there was fighting. And they taught us how to kick, how to punch, where to hit, where not to hit. And I just practiced that shit until I was 15 years old. 15 years old, I went downtown to the comic book store, and for some dumbass reason, instead of going to the comic store first, I just explored downtown. And I stumbled by the inner stairway. And I seen guys going in with their gis, and I was like, okay, cool. So I went on, bought my comic books, I went home. The very fucking next day, my dumb ass went back downtown, and they were open on Sunday. So I went in, and there was this towering of a white fella, about 6 even, maybe 6'1", real buff guy, man, in his black gi. And I came in. I had never heard of Taekwondo before. So I went in. I may have heard of it, but I wasn't sure. So I went in, and I got to talking with him. Excuse me. And he said, so you like martial arts? I said, yes, I've been doing martial arts since I was 7. It's like, how old are you now? I'm 15. He's like, okay, have you ever heard of Taekwondo? And I was like, I'm not really sure. I've heard of Kung Fu, and I've heard of Karate. He said, well, then you're in luck, because Taekwondo was from Korea. Because I have explained to him that Kung Fu was China, Karate was Japan. However, lots of things initially originated in China. But that's neither here or there. So I go in, and I'm talking to him, and he's talking to me, and he said, well, you know, the first initial class is free, so why don't you stick around? So I stuck around, and a guy that was in my high school, he was a senior, and I was gonna be a freshman, and it was before I met him in high school. His name was Steve. Steve probably was in like the 11th grade, because I hadn't gotten to high school yet. So, because we hadn't moved for the summer. So when the summer came and we moved, and when I went back, that's when I started paying for classes. So I got to school, and, you know, I didn't know the kid was there. But when I got to school, I thought, I know that guy. And then I kind of went back into Mr. Ennis' in the stairway while I was downtown. So I got there, and this is the first time we butt heads. It's really a funny situation. So when I got there was this kid. He couldn't have been more than like maybe 11. And here I am, 15, 16 years old. This kid's a green belt. And he goes, no matter how old someone is, if they outrank you in belts, you gotta call them sir. And me being the hard-headed asshole that I am, this kid wanted to abuse his power. So he said something to me, and I said, okay. And Mr. Ennis said, if you're going to be a student here, you're going to respect my rules. Drop and give me 20. And I said, what did I do wrong? You didn't say yes, sir. I said, he's a kid. He's like 11 years old. I'm not going to call him sir. Drop and give me 40. So I gave him 40 push-ups. He said, every time you don't call him sir, you're going to give me 20 push-ups. And I said, roger that. And by the end of the day, I clocked in about 100 push-ups. I refused to call that kid sir. So then we had a sparring match. Not me and Mr. Ennis, but me and that kid. And I have to say, he didn't have that green belt. He really didn't need it. He wasn't good enough to wear that green belt. And I'm sorry to whatever kid you are, if you even remember me. So we got in there, and he said, since you don't like calling him sir, you're going to spar with him. And I said, Mr. Ennis, I said, no. He's an 11-year-old kid. And so I'm not going to spar with him because I don't want to hurt him. Drop and give me 20. So I dropped and gave him 20. He said, why do you not want to spar with him? I said, dude, I'm a street fighter and a martial artist. I will hurt him if we spar. It won't be intentional, but I will hurt him. He said, oh, so you don't think that he can beat you? And I said, can't nobody in this room beat me. If I'm stupid enough to not allow them to beat me, then they can't beat me. And so, unlike every one of your students here, when I go home, I go to a neighborhood where people want to beat my ass every day. Y'all go home to white picket fences. So he goes, well, after you give me 20 push-ups, you're going to spar with that kid. And I said, okay, I'm not going to be held responsible. So we had a little sparring match. Kid didn't win. Kid had a green belt. I had a white belt. So I don't know if that had anything to do with Mr. Ennis' teaching or my fighting experience, but the kid didn't win. And then another time we bumped heads was when the dojo had moved to Grady Avenue, and I had started doing crane movements and snake movements, And Master Ennis said, "Do you really know that?" And I said, "No, but I watched it on TV." He said, "Well, if you don't know it, drop and give me 20. So I dropped and gave him 20. And then I used those exact moves that he told me not to do to win a freaking sparring match. And he goes, "I thought you said you didn't know those." I said, "I don't. But I learn really, really fast. I have an accelerated learning curve when it comes to fighting." And he's like, "Oh, that kind of explains some stuff. So then, drop and give me 20. This time on your knuckles." So now, I'm with him over a year. And he's going, "It's time for you to learn Tungu so that you can earn your yellow belt." The fact that the year before that, I made mincemeat out of an 11-year-old kid in a sparring match where I barely touched the little fucker, who was a green belt, who couldn't do the shit that I could do. And he goes, "You're going to get this yellow belt." And I'm thinking to myself, remember when I beat up the guy at the green belt at the other studio? But I kept it to myself. And I couldn't do Tungu for shit. 8 months later, he changes it to Naharate. It was the Japanese version of Taekwondo, at least that's what he told us. So, now I'm in worse shape, because Tungu is like a X. And the other one was like all this other shit, but you're making this fucking star pattern. If they had a camera above your head and doing the bird's eye view, it'd be up, right, left, up, back, down. There's a star in there somewhere in an ice cream scoop block. I couldn't do that shit to save my fucking life. But every time, like Fridays I had to work, Saturdays I had to work, but during the day I come to class because he had classes on Saturday in the daytime. Not be in that class and I have to go to work. But, you know, who gives a shit? I like martial arts. In the sparring matches, which Mr. Ennis made me do a lot of push-ups because I could fight. Anybody that had a better belt than me would always want to spar me because I was that white belt. And they were like, "You're a white belt. You ain't shit." I was like, "Uh-huh. I like it when you think like that." And then we'd have a sparring match, and I'd pull some shit out of my hat that even Mr. Ennis didn't see coming. And he'd get mad because I knocked somebody on the ass, and then he'd be like, "You need to do some push-ups until you can tell me why you did that." And I say, "I didn't do anything wrong. It was reflex. So I wasn't just going to lay there and take an ass whooping." 20 push-ups. So I did 20 push-ups. Next sparring match, same damn thing. 20 push-ups. So I was sitting there, it's like, okay, I'm not going to lose this sparring match just because this guy has a freaking black belt or a white belt or a yellow belt. It's because the belts don't mean shit. And when class was over, he would scold me. But not like in a bad way. He wouldn't like hurt my feelings. But he would let me know, this is not how I run my school. And I was like, "I understand that, sir. But I can't cut this off. These reflexes I have, they come from fighting." I had explained to him that from the age of 6 to the age of 12, I was a street fighter. Learning karate only improved my ability to fight. And then he wasn't really happy about that. 20 push-ups. So, he was a good guy. He was trying to give me discipline and structure, And there was never any complaints from any students while we were on Grady Avenue. Never. That was also the time that, that was back on Main Street, East Main Street. That was back downtown where Steve bust the nose of the kid with the green belt. So that was pretty cool. I sparred with everybody that had belts, and I couldn't get a belt. And Master Ennis pointed that shit out. I think it was like maybe 7 classes after I had won a lot of sparring matches. He would come to me after classes. "Okay, we need to have a talk." And so, I'll let you know what happens in the next video. If I can stop this one.